Greetings, friends. This is take 3, of course. It's good to see you today. Oh, that's what I said the first time, but I guess it's not good for me to see you because I guess it's good for you to see me. Thanks for tuning in. Today we are in Proverbs chapter 7. We've been looking at chapters 5, 6, and 7 last 3 days and talking about the strange woman. And I believe since there's so much information on this subject, and it is very relevant and for the day in which we live, that we would give our time to look at these passages. In these 3 chapters, we see the characteristics of a strange woman. We also see the warnings of the consequences being with the strange woman. And then we see also the instructions for us to avoid her. And so one of the areas that really pop out to my mind when I read these 3 chapters was her speech. In chapter 5, in verse number 3, it said this: "For the lips of a strange woman drop as a honeycomb, and her mouth is smoother than oil." You know, it's her words that entice you to draw near. She doesn't say words to chase you away. And that just kind of reminds me of the verse we looked at chapter 1, verse 10, that says, "When sinners entice thee, consent thou not." And that's one thing we need to be aware of, man and woman both, in this area. And then chapter 6, verse 24, speaking of the speech again of a strange woman, it says, "To keep thee from the evil woman," and talk about the word of God. Then it says this: "From the flattery of the tongue of a strange woman." Flattery. That's saying things that's probably not true, but things that you want to hear. So she flatters. Chapter 7, verse 5, "That they may keep thee from the strange woman." Once again, talking about the word of God. "From the stranger which flattereth with her words." And we kind of see a progression in all 3 chapters of the strange woman. One, it starts with the speech. It's those words that she used to cast the bait, to try to lure a man in. That's the first step we see. And then the second one we find is this. In chapter 5, verse 8, we find the man going to the woman. We find that in all 3 chapters. So the first step is she entices the man. And then the man, because he got caught, is going to her house. It says there in chapter 5, verse 8, "Remove thy way far from her, and come not nigh the door of her house." Okay, don't go there. Chapter 6, verse 29, "So he that goeth into his neighbor's wife, whoso touches her shall not be innocent." And of course, we know from the New Testament, a neighbor could be not only someone that lives close to us, but a workmate. It could be someone that we meet along the way. In chapter 7, verse 8, once again, it says, "Passing through the street near her corner, and he went the way to her house." So that's the progression. The progression is, I just can't stop myself. I liked what I heard, and so I want to go back there. And then remember, look at chapter 7, verse 9. It says this. It tells us, when did he go? In the twilight, in the evening, in the black and dark of night. Now, why would he go then? So no one sees him. So no one would know. But remember when we looked at chapter 5 and verse 21, when the Bible said, well, why would you even do this? Knowing for the ways of man are before the eyes of the Lord, and he pondereth all his goings. Listen, when we sin against God. Why is it that we worry about everyone else seeing us when we sin? But we're going to be the ones that stand before God to give an account of our actions. And he always sees. He knows it all. Look at chapter 7, verse 21. And then we see the progression as well. "For her much fair speech she caused him to yield, and with the flattering of her lips she forced him." So then we see the yielding of it. In look at verse 26 here, chapter 7. For she hath cast down many wounded, yea, many strong men have been slain by her." Many strong men. You remember, in, I believe it's 1 Corinthians chapter 10, verse 21. It says, "Wherefore, for he that thinketh he standeth, take heed lest he fall." There's those things. That's the ones that says, that will never happen to me. Listen, probably you and I both know people that this has happened to, that's been slain by her. that the devil has wrecked a home. Okay, so it's very, very real and something we need to really protect ourselves against. In chapter 6, verse 33, again it says, "A wound and dishonor shall he get, and his reproach shall not be wiped away." You know what? Sin leaves a scar, doesn't it? You say, well, won't God forgive me? Yes, God will forgive us. But you know what? We still have that scar that remains. Remember King David? She's not the one that went to him. He went to her. And there was consequences he had to pay for his actions that he took. And then as well in the Bible, and then it led to murder. It led to something else to try to cover it up. And then in the Bible, in 1 Kings 15:5, it talks about King David said he did that was right in the eyes of the Lord and turned not aside from anything that he commanded him all the days of his life. Oh, King David had a good record all his life, but save only in the matter of Uriah the Hittite. He had a dishonor. He had a wound in his life because he gave in to sin. There's a good chance you have scars on your body, accidents, maybe that because it was an accident, maybe because of stupidity. Maybe you weren't thinking. I remember when I was 7 years old, and I've got a scar here up on my head. Now it just looks like one of the wrinkles with my old age. But I still remember at 7 years old where I was coming from, and what caused that scar. I was running back the hallway. We came home, and we was going to go to change our clothes, go to the barn. And you know the latch on a door, not the side that turns, but the other side that's in the frame of the door, that sharp edge, that's how high I was. And I went running and went around turned into my room, caught that, and I had to go to the hospital, get stitches. Hey, got me out of farming, but I'd rather milk the cows than I had to go to the emergency room and get stitches. And then have a scar on my leg when I was in 9th grade, bedding the cows, cutting a bale of straw, did the thing you shouldn't do, took a knife and was pulling it towards me, and it was a dull knife. And that was the problem, was the dull knife, so I had to pull on it and right back into my leg. Puncture wound right there. And I got a scar to this day from that knife. And then again, when I was 12, just turned 12 years old, I was in the hospital for 6 weeks from a burn that I got on the back of my body and had skin graft. But I have scars on my body, and those scars remind me of accidents that I had in the past. And because I had those accidents, you know what? Now I remember. I get scared. That's why with my children in the house, I don't like seeing them run. Now that my grandchildren are moving around the house pretty good, I don't like them running because of the accident I had, and I want to warn them. And then again with penknives, when I see someone with a penknife using it, make sure you push that thing away from you. Don't cut towards you. I was fortunate it's just my leg and not somewhere else. And then again with gasoline and fire, it's how my accident happened. Those things are a reminder of what happened. And I, as well as you, probably know people that these things have happened to, and we need to remind them. And we need to remind ourselves anytime we hear it, to run, to flee, so we don't get wounded in dishonor for the rest of our life. Well, love you, my friend, and looking forward again when we can get back together face to face. Looking forward to time for our Sunday school classes. Let me remind all the teenagers, we'll be back in Exodus chapter 3 again in the life of Moses. And so start reading that chapter. Read 1, 2. There's not a whole lot there. Again, to keep yourself familiar. And then see you tomorrow. Tomorrow's Friday. Again with another 5 minutes or so with Brother Curtis. Thanks for praying. And remember, we are another day closer. God bless.